we're gonna really make some good, cheap imaging spectrometers. And I'm like pulling my hair out, going, no, please don't. And they did it anyway. And there were some really crappy ones. There still are some really crappy imaging spectrometers. And I think it nearly sank the entire industry because some really horrible instruments were built without this understanding of having to have exquisite performance to bother to have that many bands. If you can't make the data very good, don't bother. And there was a time in there it almost got extinguished by crappy instruments. And I'm so happy that yours aren't crappy. And that caused me to start to understand the importance of linking the instrument design and the instrument performance with the final data. And it became clear to me over these last 3 decades that we should think about imaging spectrometers like brain surgery if we think about things like Landsat, like gardening or something. You know, one's a shovel and one's a scalpel. And it got very difficult in the early aughts, I guess. And after 2000 or late 90s, early 2000s, there was a transition in the instrument designs from a whisk broom, where every spectrum in the data cube was measured with the same set of linear row of detectors. They switched to this clever idea of looking through a slit and having a push broom system. And I think it nearly sank the entire industry because some really horrible instruments were built without this understanding of having to have exquisite performance to bother to have that many bands, right? If you're going to have hundreds of bands, they need to be co-registered, they need to be well calibrated, they need to be the same instrument every day. And so he came up with this idea of these 4 hurdles. And also I got some of this from a colleague, Rob Green. And the idea is, first, that you have to have uniformity in the data. It has to be that every spectrum in the whole data cube has to be as though it was measured by the same spectrometer. You can't have 1,000 different spectrometers because you have non-uniformity across track. And then you have to have stability. You have to have the instrument be the same instrument every day if you're going to go repeat measurements, obviously. And then you have to have calibration, because we got to tie these back to national and international standards and the actual irradiance from the sun to convert to reflectance. So you have to have calibration, and then finally signal to noise. And none of this is any good unless your noise floor is low enough to tell apart the things you're trying to see. And these new instruments just weren't that great, to put it politely. They failed on those 4 hurdles over and over. And I saw this through a lot of manufacturers, and it really had me worried because the whole industry was getting now damaged in some way by bad instruments creating bad data, which I think are essentially useless, like a dull scalpel, right? If you can't make the data very good, don't bother. And happily, I ran across Trond in Brno, and he was giving a demo of a UAV system, of all things. I sat in the front row and I was like, oh, here's another one of those horrible push broom sensors that's going to ruin my life. And he did the demo and he flew the thing and showed us the data. And he sent me some of the radiance data afterwards. And I started looking at them, saying, well, which hurdle are they going to fall on? You know, is it uniformity? Is it stability? Is it calibration? Or is it signal to noise? Boom, 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 boom. They made it over all 4. And that got us interested. And the company I'm working with now, we now own 8 of their systems, which I never thought I'd work for a company owning 8 imaging spectrometers. We may very well buy more, because not only have they hit those hurdles, they've done it at a price point that makes me happy, because I've been in this business for 40 years almost. And it's a very narrow world of imaging spectroscopy or hyperspectral data. And it's at risk of dying out, maybe besides some of the national programs you can't talk about. But to see a price point here where people who had, basically dropped by a factor of 10 from some of the bespoke instruments that you really don't have access to anyway, So to me, there's these four, you've got to go in order. Your instruments are unique in meeting these hurdles, and it makes me so happy. And that's why I'm here today to tell you, because I feared that these low-cost push broom sensors that were flooding the market, my market that I helped create, were going to ruin it. And so the idea that there is a choice, you guys, you are the choice. That's why we're buying so many of your instruments for ASO, Airborne Snow Observatory, where I'm now the chief research officer or some weird title.